Y ahora sí, ¿qué les parece que para dar esta bienvenida oficial cedamos la palabra a nuestro anfitrión? Me estoy refiriendo a Salvador Espinosa Félix, nuestro director general de Prosa, quien nos dará esta bienvenida oficial, pero también nos hablará acerca de las perspectivas de los medios de pago en nuestro país. Primero les cuento que tiene una trayectoria de más de 25 años en el sistema financiero mexicano. Es director general de Prosa después de 2 años de haber sido consejero en
2 years of being the advisor in Scotiabank, where he was the vice president of retail products, and he was responsible of overseeing the following areas: collection, insurance, credit cards, personal loans, payroll, ATM, debit, and payment methods. And this morning, I see he's really looking forward to coming into the stage. So let's give the floor to Salvador Espinosa Felix.
Thank you very much, Vicky, and a very good day to all of you. It's a pleasure and a source of pride to be able to be with you here today and open these lectures on the 11th edition of the Prosa Forum. I thank you all for being here with us. I thank our customers and strategic partners and members of the press and all of those who are with us here this morning. Welcome to all of you. At Prosa, we are focusing on contributing every day to the creation of a more solid ecosystem for payments and a more efficient one, which will be the base of an impeccable experience for all those who directly or indirectly use our services. That's our vision. And therefore, my talk this morning deals with the outlook on payment media in Mexico and knowing which direction that experience is going, where are digital payments going, and what's ahead for us. So if you like, we'll get started. And the first slide that we chose here comes from our great enemy. It's about the great enemy of any ecosystem for payment, which is cash. Cash in the region represents a smaller and smaller portion of payment media. The costs of managing cash are going up for almost everyone. It's very important to acknowledge that the use of cash represents costs for different groups of people, especially for, of course, the lower sectors, also for businesses and for the government itself in tax terms. The costs of cash are very high. Undoubtedly, the pandemic has come along and changed this behavior of high cash use, but we still have a long road to travel. Personal digitization also has modified habits among the entire population. Some of them definitely have arrived to stay. We're all experiencing this now. On the one hand, staying at home, usually daily exchanges of goods and services, and even in many cases it was common to pay in cash. That's no longer necessary. We find that we can do our grocery shopping, that we can buy from restaurants and purchase products from department stores online from home and pay through digital media. The penetration of internet and smartphones in Latin America has been an enabler, but especially with the convenience of various logistic systems and digital payment options, they have rapidly served the basic needs of consumers, and the new variations of e-commerce have grown exponentially in recent months. Now, something that has been a key enabler in this transformation is the adoption of technology that we have observed now and that we've been discussing, and undoubtedly we will continue to experience in coming years. Technologies that just a few years ago began to appear in industry with a relatively low presence have reached their maturity in a very rapid manner in recent months, allowing for the arising of a whole new generation of media that offer a more convenient experience for consumers. Here we show some statistics of global transactions and how contactless transactions have grown, especially with certain technological solutions or mechanisms. Then we could be talking all day about technology and about technological adoption and the penetration of new solutions. But honestly, I wouldn't like to fail to speak of the importance of how all of this that we're discussing can generate a benefit for the population at large. So we need to talk a little bit about financial inclusion and its importance. Undoubtedly, we all know of the great need that there is in our country and in Latin America generally to increase this penetration. And it's just at this moment of recovery where financial inclusion becomes a fundamental factor to generate better conditions and more opportunities for the economically displaced population because of the effects of the pandemic to be able to participate normally in productive activity that is even more globalized, better compensated, and to be able to innovate and do exchanges of goods and services remotely, taking advantage of new payment media. Undoubtedly, financial inclusion grew at a more accelerated rate because of the pandemic, because of this need that we've just mentioned for digital payments and of the inclusion of the population into these payment schemes. But definitely there's a lot to do yet in that area. Now, as we promote financial inclusion, a virtuous circle is created among all participants. First of all, consumers have access to more convenient and safer ways to accumulate, keep, and transfer money. Secondly, businessmen and merchants transform services and business models which attract new markets and attract capital to prosper. And thirdly, and very importantly, financial institutions obviously grow and serve new segments which are larger and much more inclusive. And fourth, and for me the most important, is the economic activity in general. The result of all of this is that economic activity is increased and is strengthened because of the diversity, quantity, and speed of operations that we can carry out now that we have these digital capabilities. Now, what are the challenges for the industry? Let's move more toward what we need to do. What is our job? The current gap in financial inclusion in the region is explained, among other reasons, by the asymmetry of information. Promoting financial inclusion in a larger group of the population in Mexico poses new challenges. And here we realize what, in my opinion, are the most important ones. Number one, to increase financial education. Undoubtedly, we all know, and we experience this every day, the importance of this factor, the importance of continuing to promote financial education. Secondly, to facilitate the presentation of identification documents. Current regulations and recent changes have allowed us to be much more agile in that sense. And today, it's much easier to do things than it was just a few years ago. But undoubtedly also there is a long way to go here as well. Number three, speaking of the experience of customers, it's very important to ensure the protection of consumers in the digital system because there are still certain doubts and questions that cause consumers to not necessarily feel as comfortable as we do and as comfortable as we would hope they would be. The fourth is to increase the availability of and accessibility to underprivileged sectors. And fifth, and very important, is to extend the possibilities of the use of these bank accounts. That is, have the permeation of the whole ecosystem of payments, both among the issuers and among the purchasers, and the possibility of the use of these accounts to have that be broader. Now, what is the strategic scenario in the future? What is the new path to that inclusion and the scenario ahead? Unlike the conventional scheme of financial inclusion, which traditionally we knew where inclusion was measured in terms of how much penetration had been made by loans through microcredits and so on. Because of, or thanks to, maybe we should say, this recent acceleration in digitization and the surge of electronic commerce, the way that people are included financially definitely has begun to change. Now it's much more in terms of payments, the way a person or a company can access products that are timely and accessible has become one of the main innovation fronts in this sector. And here, many of our participants in this forum are fintechs and they're new players that undoubtedly are testimony to this. If we look at it closely, this inclusion effort is being based largely on media for payment and innovation that we're seeing in this area. So let's go now to the consumer side. We've already talked about our challenges. Let's take a look at the consumer's perspective. I think that to approach these challenges that are not small, it's important to know clearly who the target population is for inclusion, because this population and the social demography of our country is changing. Importantly, unlike other countries, in Mexico, we all know that practically half of the population makes up the so-called Z generation, though these digital natives begin their work or their job activity, and they may not be so attractive to traditional financial models. Obviously, speaking of use and transaction of the new platforms represents an enormous market, and that's where financial inclusion begins. So in my opinion, if today we act as a sector, we will see positive results even in this within this decade. I think that none of us who are connected today want to see these new generations go back to use cash, but rather to have them be not only digital natives, but also digital money natives. So let me leave you with a reflection to rack up this talk and to get this forum started. Definitely, we need to change several of the paradigms that we have. The clear trends toward digitization and the rise of a new economy and the profile of consumers that come into this economy provide, as a result, conditions that are diametrically different from those that we're accustomed to in our industry. And for that reason, we should question the premises and current suppositions and make adjustments in our strategies in the short term. That's why I want to share with you 3 specific recommendations based on a study done by McKinsey, which I felt honestly was extraordinary, as to how to take advantage of that digital acceleration that we're experiencing. And they're basically these, which we see on the screen. Number 1, reimagine the products and services of the future. Completely reimagine them. Those services and products, I think that it's happened to all of us, that industries that we thought could no longer be able to generate disruption have done so. And we've experienced this in our area of competency. There are still many, many things to do. We need to reimagine those services toward the future. Number 2, prepare to live with technological mega players in all atmospheres. But it's those that come to our mind which are more and more integrated. And number 3, well, to take advantage of the moment to pivot what we have done. This means being able to forget maybe the original business plan that we defined at the beginning, to give way to a strategy focused on what really works. And this may mean a radical change in the business model that we currently have. And the business model is always subject to change, and it's time to question our business model and make changes as needed now. So, without further ado, friends and colleagues, I cordially welcome you to this great annual event, the 2021 Prosa Forum. I invite you not only today, when we will have some extremely interesting lectures, but also tomorrow. Remember, we have the forum, and it will include some very, very interesting lectures. I won't say any more. Just wish you a very good day and enjoy it. Thank you very much.